Welcome to Grace Covenant Presbyterian Church. I'm Marcia Mount-Shoup. I'm one of the pastors here. I use she, her pronouns. And we're going to start out with some announcements this morning. We've created a little bit of a different space for worship today. Surprise, surprise. We're doing something different. So we're glad you're here. And this has been quite a week. Quite a week. Quite a week on the planet, quite a week in the country, quite a week in our region, quite a week in our presbytery, quite a week in our congregation. So this morning we're creating space for us to be together with all of that. In a way, hey, how are you? Baby Micah's first appearance. Woo! Welcome. We're making space for us to be together with all of this in sacred practice. So you'll notice this circle of chairs over here. This is going to be a sacred circle we're going to use a lot of different ways today. And there'll be opportunities for you to join in this circle. There'll be ingress and egress at different times. And you can participate as you feel called and led. There's room for you to just show up as yourself with whatever you bring. So just take a deep breath and remember you are welcomed here, you are wanted here, you are loved here, and that's all of you. That's all of you. If you're new to Grace Covenant, please understand that our work around embodiment is a part of the central call of this church that we feel God is calling us to really heal ourselves of the ways that white supremacy has broken relationship in our lives, in our culture, in our country, and in our church. And so today is a practice. It's a practice of survival and a practice of solidarity. I want to invite our ushers to come in and bring the connect pads so that we can build some community while we're here. We can greet each other by name. We can learn each other's names. We can just mark that we're here together today. Our winter theme is Joy Comes Back. And so today we're going to be playing with that song some more that Ray wrote and practicing with it some more. Our deacon of the week today is Bob Giddas. Where are you, Bob? There's Bob. Oh, nice. I always like to see the fashion statement with the deacon of the week. It's very, very nice, Bob. I like it. Very nice. A reminder that we announced last week's session is called a congregational meeting for next Sunday after church, February 2nd. It'll be immediately following worship, and that is for the purpose of hearing a report from the nominating committee on a new slate of elders and deacons and people to serve on the nominating committee. So you don't want to miss it. It'll be great. Also next Sunday in the morning, at 8:30, we're having a breakfast for anybody who might be interested in learning more about this church or even becoming a member of this church. That starts at 8:30. There'll be members of the session and staff there, and we hope you'll join us down in the fellowship hall next Sunday at 8:30. Now I want to invite the ushers to come on in and take up the offering. We do appreciate any way you can share in your financial resources with this community so that we can continue to do the things that we do and be the things that we are, that you can support all the ministries of this community and the ministries of our covenant partners. Youth group is going to meet right after church and have pizza, so you don't want to miss that. That's going to be upstairs in the youth room. A little bit about our Hurricane Relief Center. Some of you may have seen on Facebook or other places that we have had to shut our doors for rent support. We need more financial resources. And we have been reaching out to local funding organizations and really trying to encourage them to give us some larger scale funding. In one day last week, we wrote checks for $132,000. So, you know, the $10,000 grant that we get from different groups, that's not enough to keep us going at the rate that people are getting evicted. So Wednesday at 10:30, I meet with some community leaders who are advocating for us to get more funding with Dogwood Health Trust. We hope you will pray for that meeting. We sent a letter this week with a lot of our community partners signed on in support of Grace Covenant getting some more funding so that we can continue our work. So just be in prayer, and we're going to continue to trust God's economy. But right now we are having to take a deep breath and lean in a little harder to what might be next. Also, we will be open Tuesday for supplies and to hand out more checks that we promised we would write last week. We just won't be taking any new requests until we have more funding. We also need more volunteers for Asheville Terrace. We're so glad to see Joyce Foster back. Yay! We've been praying for you. So glad you're feeling better. And Susan, we're glad to see you back too. So, and just a reminder that Lenten series will be starting the first week of March, and we are going to be having our Wednesday night dinners during Lent. So we hope you'll mark your calendars for that. There are many different movements afoot that crisscross with the life of Grace Covenant around solidarity, around all that's happening in our nation right now. As I said, this has been a difficult week. Chris Crawford, our own Chris Crawford, is a part of the More Light board in the Presbyterian Church, and they came out with a powerful statement this week standing up against the rhetoric and these executive orders that have happened that are directly impact our LGBTQIA siblings. So Chris, thank you for your work, and I hope that you all will go to the More Light website and read that statement. There are action steps too that people are invited to take. Also, our Latinx neighbors and siblings are organizing, and Grace Covenant is a part of those efforts as well. We are going to be hearing more about opportunities to get involved in those things, but I just wanted to name that SEMA, one of our Covenant partners, is starting to offer verifiers training again, and those trainings are really well done, and that's an easy way for you to get involved and be a part of a network in this town to help protect people when ICE comes to town. And ICE is in town. They were here this week. We also have an invitation. There will be another community defender training put on by the National Immigration Project. It's a free training. It's Wednesday, January 29th from 5 to 6:30. If you need more information about that, if you're interested, let me know, and we're going to try to post this stuff on Realm as well. I'll be keeping you up with other opportunities as well. You may know some things going on. Always send it to us in the church office so we can share it with the community. Hey, let's do something fun. Take your GCPC at home pictures. Take your GCPC at home pics, whether you're here in the sanctuary or home. Take your picture so we can build community while we're together, and send it to us at prayer@gcpcusa.org. Go on and take your pictures. And another reminder that we're going to be having a Godly Play training on March 22nd. Mark your calendars for that. And I want to invite Bill McNeff. He's going to make a brief announcement, tell you a little bit more about our cancer support ministry brunch that's coming up on February 22nd.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm sure everybody here is aware that we have a cancer ministry here at GCPC. Well, that evil Helene wiped out our last meeting. So we're rebounding. The committee is chaired by Ann Turnage and also includes myself and Kimo Hyatt. On February 22nd, Saturday morning, we're going to have a brunch meeting. And I want to invite anyone who's ever had cancer, is a survivor of cancer, is newly diagnosed with cancer, is in cancer treatment. The purpose of the meeting is not just to join together in camaraderie, but for us that are survivors to share our experiences, how we overcame. Because when you're told you have cancer, it scares the hell out of you. It did me and my family, but I'm standing here cancer-free. And we want to share that with everyone that can come out and be with us. It's fun. We're going to have a meal. Presbyterians like to eat. So we're definitely going to have a brunch. So if you know anyone at all that you can invite to this, and the families of those folks are invited too, because it's important. Our object, we want to bring joy to an otherwise dismal and difficult situation. So you can sign up on Realm or get in touch with me or Ann or Kimo, and we'll log you in. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, a few prayer concerns before we continue with worship. Please continue to be in prayer for Carl and Nancy Litton. Nancy was moved into a rehab facility, and then she will be moving into their new place at Arbor Terrace. Carl is in the midst of some radiation treatment, still in the hospital for his back, and he soon will be reunited with Nancy at Arbor Terrace. So continue to pray for them. They feel your prayers, and they're just so grateful. This week, we added little baby Elitza and the Rosario Singers to the prayer list because they had to go back to the hospital for Elitza's bilirubin levels, but they're home again. Things are down. They're getting better, and it's thanks be to God. So we're also very happy that little baby Micah is here today. We've been thinking about you all. Also, please pray for Kat Catrice Brooks. She was in the emergency room this morning with some severe abdominal pain. They're still trying to figure out what's going on, but still, please pray for Kat. Also, I want to share a couple of joys. Yesterday at Presbyterian, we celebrated the work of Cam Murkison, who's been the stated clerk of this Presbyterian for 10 years now, and he is, I don't know what you do when you're done being a clerk. Hang up your clerky stuff, hang up your book of order. I don't know what you do. But we celebrated Cam yesterday, and he's known and loved in this congregation. And today I'm happy to welcome our new stated clerk of the Presbyterian, Ann Philbrick. So Ann, we're so happy to welcome you to the Presbyterian. We look forward to you and Kim really moving here in the fall, and this community is one that will always be delighted to welcome you to worship anytime you can join us. So welcome again. We're glad you're here. And you may have other prayer concerns. I want you to remember that you can always share your prayer concerns by emailing us at prayer@gcpcusa.org. You can put them on the green prayer cards. You can also use the YouTube chat. So let's continue with worship.
Oh, just straight? You can make a rhythm. Is it going to be your song? Later on.
We acknowledge our complicated history on this land called Togayatsi by the Fire People, the Cherokee ancestors, and we acknowledge the sacredness in these ancient mountains and the mystery and majesty of all the wildlife and trees and plants that live here.
We will continue to deepen our understanding of the harmful history of Christianity and the ways that Christians have stolen land from non-Christians all over the world.
We remember the harm done by the doctrine of discovery and Christianity authorizing genocide. This history is a part of our legacy on this land.
We seek ways to repair the harmful history of Presbyterian participation in chattel slavery, boarding schools for indigenous children, and upholding white supremacy in the ways faith has been lived out.
We are grateful for signs of resilience, resolve, and resistance in the way this land now grows food, community, and justice, and the joy they bring. We will continue to practice following Spirit on unknown paths, letting go and leaning in, and believing that the way we can change and that the world can change too.
Thank you. So, there are lots of stories of the land, of this land and this region's land, our country's land, and all those stories are in the room. And there's one I just want to raise up, especially this morning. Anybody else who wants to join us in the circle is welcome to come. So about 4 years ago, the Presbytery formed an administrative commission to close the West Asheville Presbyterian Church congregation. And I was on that commission, and I was on it with several other folks in the Presbytery. I was the co-chair with Patrick Johnson from First Presbyterian Church here in Asheville. So I brought to that conversation all the work we're doing here at Grace Covenant. And so one of the values I brought to our conversation was that I believe God was calling me as a leader of that commission to really challenge us to think that we should not decide what happened to that land as a largely white organization, but that we needed to have partners at the table who were people of color and people who were impacted by the different structural racism systems that have existed in this city. It was a lot of work. We took the first 2 years to just sort of pastorally close the congregation. And then we started our work of really framing, like, how are we going to do this? What is this going to look like? And there was some resistance. And there was some anxiety. And there was some hoarding and being afraid to let go of resources. There are different appraisals of this land, but it's worth somewhere between $3 and $6 million. It's a very valuable piece of land in this town. As we were working on partnerships and our framework, we put things on the table like we've been talking about at Grace Covenant, that white people often overpromise and underdeliver. White systems often bring people of color to the table and then say, oh, no, we can't do that. And so we really didn't want to do harm in our process. But there was still differing understandings of the way we do this. So then we found out that there were probably some remains of previously enslaved people in a cemetery under the parking lot of that land, which told us that, wow, this really shouldn't be something white people are deciding what to do with. And the Spirit really just took our commission in this powerful direction. and we began conversations with the Reparations Stakeholders Authority of Asheville. And that conversation just got deeper and deeper and deeper. And we learned more and more about the history. That actually that land in 1916 had a black church on it, right across the street from where West Asheville Presbyterian Church is now, called Wilson's Chapel. And Wilson's Chapel was forced to move. And they were forced to move all of the bodies out of that sanctuary out of that cemetery in 90 days. Now, why, you would ask? Why were they forced to move? Why would they need to dig up all the graves? Well, Patrick Johnson took it upon himself to do a lot of deep research. And he found out that at that time in Asheville, they were doing something that was new in the country called city planning. And Asheville was one of the kind of early adopters of city planning. And the person who came to town, a consultant back in the 20s, came to town and said, the wave of the future, the way to have a healthy community, the way to grow and have healthy neighborhoods and help people feel safe is to segregate communities by race. Asheville adopted it wholeheartedly. This is around the time when the land for West Asheville Presbyterian was given to the presbytery. So all these things are happening at once. The neighborhood is becoming white. Black people are being pushed out, and this black church is pushed out too. And they did the best that they could. There's a newspaper article where they begged for more time to try to get all the bodies out, and they were told, you have a deadline. You've got to get it done. So once we knew this history, there was a straight line for us to what we needed to do, that this was an act of repair. So still, that anxiety in white systems doesn't go away just like that because of history. If it did, our country would be in a whole different place right now. There was still anxiety and still questions, and so we tried to create space to tell the story and to let people ask their questions. But we didn't know what was going to happen yesterday when it came before the whole presbytery of almost 200 people to vote on this. And you know what happened? The presbytery voted unanimously to convey ownership of the property of West Asheville Presbyterian Church, the building and the land, at no cost to the Reparations Stakeholders Authority of Asheville. It's amazing. Oh, that's awesome. Praise God. Today, as we settle into this land and we settle into our identity as people of faith in this town, in this denomination, in this presbytery, in this moment around the question of reparation and repair and healing for our community, we hold this story in our hearts and we let it shape us going forward. Because the past is part of who we are, but so is the present and the future. And so we thank God. We thank God for this new beginning. And we hold our siblings in the community here, in the black community in particular, as they now will discern what happens to this space, what happens to that building, what happens to that property, and they begin to dream. And we trust Spirit with it all. Thanks be to God. Yeah. Thank you all. so I want to invite now the kiddos to come and join me in this circle. And I want to share another. Oh, sorry. No, we. Oh, yeah. Go. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. So I would like to invite anybody who would like to come up and be part of a drum circle here. So don't be shy. Come on up.
Come on
and
in.
I'll ask the ushers also to bring around the baskets for anybody, people that would like to stay in your seats. So we have shakers and rhythm instruments, but yeah.
Let's make a little room, y'all.
So just start this beat with me. So as you feel, let's bring it down a little softer for a moment. Bring it down a minute. So we want to get a group rhythm going here. So you just want to start with a beat. You can. As you feel moved, you can improvise and start layering some other rhythms. But what I really encourage you to do is to listen to each other and respond to each other. And if you hear the energy starting to increase, you can move with that, lean into that, all right? If you'd like, you can close your eyes. So you can really let your sense of hearing take over. bringing it down, but keep drumming, keep drumming. Amen.
Now I want to invite the kiddos to come into the circle. If you can join me here, I have a story I want to share with you that needs a little help at the end. Can you all come in here with me? And you can bring anybody who loves you with you. You can bring friends. Come on in. And it's okay to sit where there's a drum. Come on in. Hello. How are you? Come on in. How are you all doing today? It's really good to see you. It's okay for you to hit a drum if you want to. If you want to try it out, you're allowed. All right. So this is a book that I've known about for a long time, and some of you may have known about it. It's called the Blue Day Book. Have you heard of this book? The Blue Day Book? So this was a while ago when I got this book, and even at that time, 13 million copies of this little book were sold. So it must be saying something to somebody, right? And the subtitle of this is A Lesson in Cheering Yourself Up. So it's a story about, like, when you're kind of feeling down. And it's kind of a different sort of story because it's not really a story. It's like this guy that wrote this book, he's had a kind of tough life. He's been through a lot of tough things. And he loves animals. So he uses animals to try to help us think about what to do when we're kind of having a tough day. Now, I really like what he does in the book, but I think there's something missing at the end. And so just listen, and maybe when we get to the end, we can work together on what might be missing. Okay? Are you all ready? All right. Everybody has blue days. What's that? Polar bear. These are miserable days when you feel lousy. Lousy. Grumpy. Grumpy. Anybody in here ever been grumpy? Uh-huh. Lonely. Look at that little guy. He's lonely. Okay? Or utterly exhausted. Look at utterly exhausted. Okay? Days when you feel small and insignificant. What's that little animal? It's a little baby sea turtle. When everything seems just out of reach. Yeah, what's that? Is it a squirrel? Look closely. It might be a rat. I think it's a rat trying to open somebody's refrigerator. Or a mouse. You can't rise to the occasion. You just getting started seems impossible. Poor guy. Literally falling on his face. On blue days, you can become paranoid that everyone is out to get you. You feel frustrated and anxious. You see that? On blue days, you feel like you're floating in an ocean of sadness. You're about to burst into tears at any moment, and you don't even know why. Who do you see there? Yeah, floating in an ocean of sadness. Ultimately, you feel like you're wandering through life without purpose. You're not sure how much longer you can hang on. You see somebody you know there? Little guys. A little kitten about to fall out of the tree. Yeah. You might have a splitting headache. Splitting headache. It means your head hurts. Or you slipped a disc. The grown-ups can understand that one. Slipped a disc. Bad breath. A toothache. You see the bad breath and the toothache? I thought about skipping this, but then I thought, why not? Chronic gas or dry lips. We don't know anything about that, though, do we? Nothing. No way. Nothing. Or a nasty ingrown toenail. Whatever the reason, you're convinced that someone up there just doesn't like you. Oh, what to do, what to do? Well, if you're like most people, you'll hide behind a flimsy belief that everything will just sort itself out. Then you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for everything to go wrong all over again, all the while becoming crusty and cynical. What do you see there? I know. That just means you'll be like, nothing's ever good. Like Eeyore on Pooh, yeah. Oh, bother. After all, but, and I skip a few pages because it gets a little long-winded and adult-like, but, he says, the world is full of amazing discoveries, things you can't even imagine right now. There's fresh air and fragrant sniffs aplenty and scrumptious snacks to share and savor. Snacks. Hey, you might end up fabulously rich or even become a huge superstar. Interesting. Yeah. Sounds good, doesn't it? But wait, there's more. There are cartwheels and games to play. And vinyasa yoga. And karaoke power ballads. So how can you find this just sliding into a hot bubble bath kind of feeling? It's actually pretty easy. First, stop slinking away from all those nagging issues. It's time to face the music. In other words, you have to feel the things that are hard to feel. Now just relax. Take some deep breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Try to meditate if you can. Or go for a walk to clear your head. Accept the fact that you'll have to let go of some emotional baggage. The adults in the room know what that means. Sometimes we just have to let go of some things. Try seeing things from a different perspective. Maybe you're actually the one who needs to say that you're sorry. If someone else is doing the wrong thing, then step forward and bravely say that's not right and I won't stand for it. When truth and justice are at stake, it's okay to be forceful. But it's rarely okay to blow raspberries, which I think he means going, okay. And that's the rhinoceros doing that. Be proud of who you are. And don't lose the ability to laugh at yourself. Don't be afraid to bite off more than you can chew. Look at that little guy. It's a big bone for a little puppy. Take big risks. Never hang back. Get out there and go for it. After all, isn't that what life is all about? I think so too. Okay, so interesting story. Like, we've all got sad, hard days. There are ways we can get out there and cheer ourselves up. What's missing in this story? What's missing in this? Any ideas? What are we doing right now? What are we doing right now, Vivian? What are we doing right now? Are we by ourselves, like taking a walk or just kind of playing a game by ourselves? What are we doing? Yeah, we're here. We're together. So I really like how this book tells us to kind of pay attention to what's around us. But I feel like there's something missing in that being sad isn't something you have to do by yourself. And that sometimes when we find a way to share what we're sad about, that's when we find some joy together. It's because we can share it, it's not so heavy to carry it around all by yourself. And sometimes when we make space for that, things get a little bit easier. Things get a little bit funnier. Things get a little bit excitinger. Things get a little bit more joyful when we do it together. That's one of the main reasons we come together every week, is because we need each other. We need each other for the sad things, and we need each other for the joyful things. But they're not separate. They're not separate from each other. So if I was going to end this book, if I was going to take some animal pictures and end this book, you know what I would put in there on the last picture? A herd of horses. I would put a herd of horses because horses know how much they need each other. And they don't want to be apart from each other. Horses don't want to live alone. And when one horse is having a hard time, the other horses protect it. If a horse is injured, the other horses will get around it so that predators can't get to it. If one horse is getting ready to have a baby, other horses will come around and stand around so that the baby can safely be born. That's kind of the thing that we're trying to do. We're trying to be a good, trustworthy herd that takes good care of each other, especially when we're having a tough time. Does that sound good to y'all? Thanks for helping me finish this story. Luke, you want to pray?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
All right, let's get in a prayerful posture, whatever that looks like for you. You can repeat after me. Dear God.
Dear God.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for being with us.
In bad days.
In bad days.
And in good days.
In good days.
In days when we feel alone.
In days when we feel alone.
And in days when we're in community.
And in days when we're in community.
Help us.
Help us.
To hold our sadness.
To hold our sadness.
Along with our happiness.
Along with our happiness.
And all the other emotions.
And all the other emotions.
That life gives us.
That life gives us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For being with us.
For being with us.
In all of it.
In all of it.
Amen.
All right, you are going to go out with Miss Kathy and hear another story. We'll see you in a little bit. I know, you need to. We both need to. Thank you, Kathy.
Here, I'm going to invite you to stand up and stretch your legs and come over to one of these stations here. We have one right over here, and I'll explain all this stuff on here in a second. And we've got another one on the communion table you might have seen as you're walking into the space. And look at all this stuff we got here. We got clipboards, we got colored pencils, we got crayons, we got Sharpies, we got all different kinds of paper. And we also have these plates. Because we're going to be reading something in just a second that kind of camps out on this idea of a potluck. And we'll be making a potluck of sorts together as we figure that out, and that'll become more clear as we hear this reading. You know, in this series about joy, we've been calling on different distilled speech, whether that be a poetry or this time it's a short essay that we'll be engaging together that encourage us to think about joy in a potluck kind of a way. And if you want to read along as I'm reading that to you, I've got some of those copied out right here. And Kyle, if you could put a copy of that in the YouTube chat for folks worshiping at home. You're not off the hook. You should get your own art supplies. I know you have them at home. And we'll just, as we're reading it, you'll have some opportunities to engage in different ways, and then we'll give you more instructions. Right now, what I want you to do is just prepare to listen in whatever way is supportive for you. That might be walking around, that might be getting some of this stuff, that might just be kind of gazing out of a window and sitting back in your chair. Options abound. And Ray, if you'll just play a little traveling music as we kind of get situated, that would be great. Go and do all of those things. Look at that. Wow. Alrighty. Looks like we're just about settled in here. Why don't we all take a deep breath together? Let's get ready to listen here. If you're one of the people following along with one of those packets, I just want you to flip that page so you see how it printed funny, so you won't be scared about that halfway through the reading. It's okay. All the words are there. They're just upside down. You can flip it around. So this is an essay from Ross Gay from his book, Inciting Joy. I think, in hindsight, Marcia, this was a strange time to make a series about joy with everything going on, but it has been a beautiful challenge, and it has, created some wonderful things, and I think this essay speaks to it. Ross Gay is a poet and an essayist, and these are some of his reflections on joy. I have had the good fortune in the past several years, and shortly after the publication of my third book of poems, Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude, to have numerous and sustained conversations about joy. These conversations might begin during a question and answer session and interviews, or even in book signings. I'll never forget a woman at a reading in a public library in April of 2016 in Claremont, California. I suspect she was in her late 60s, early 70s. And when she asked me to inscribe her book, she was crying. Just a little, not very able to talk. And she said, quietly wiping her face, "I didn't know you could write about joy." Or another time, a professor at another school asked during a Q&A, "Well, with all this going on," he held his hand up as though to imply war, famine, people all over the world in cages or concentration camps, some of them children, disease, sorrow, immense and immutable. It only gets worse and worse and worse. Dude had big hands. With all this, why would you write about joy? The implication, of course, is that joy doesn't have anything to do with everything in that guy's big hands. Or even that joy is the opposite of what's in there, which I guess is a reasonable notion, given how joy is often imagined to be the result of organizing your closets and bookshelves, or winning the big game, or getting a promotion. Joy, the thinking goes, is a room at the top of a flight of stairs that, upon entering, washes you with clean air and glad music and comfy furniture and gentle warmth emanating from the white pine floors, suffused with light pouring in from the enormous windows. The joy room, the thinking goes, is snug with every good and nice and cozy thing. Oh, too, this is important. This sanctuary of joy has a very strong lock. Think Tom and Jerry, 10 or 15 latches and deadbolts and chains and the rest. Put there for when heartbreak gets loose and comes sniffing around the keyhole, throttling the door, trying to get in. It is a kid's fantasy by which we grown-ups seem as seduced as plenty of kids to imagine any emotion discrete from any other. But it strikes me as a particularly dangerous fantasy because we often think of joy as meaning without pain or without sorrow. This definition suggests that someone might be able to live without, or maybe a more accurate phrase is, free of heartbreak or sorrow, which I'm pretty sure you don't get to do unless you have no relationships, love nothing, are a sociopath, and maybe if you're enlightened. I don't know about you, but I check none of these boxes. But what happens if joy is not separate from pain? What if joy and pain are fundamentally tangled up with one another? Or, even more to the point, what if joy is not only entangled with pain or suffering or sorrow, but is also what emerges from how we care for each other throughout those things? What if joy, instead of a refuge or relief from heartbreak, is what effloresces from us as we help each other carry our heartbreak? Rather than quarantining ourselves or running from sorrow, rather than warring with sorrow, we lay down our swords and invite sorrow in. I'm suggesting that we make sorrow some tea from the lemon balm in the garden, We let sorrow wash up and take some of our clothes. We give sorrow our dad's slippers that we've hung on to for 15 years for just this occasion. As we refill the tea, we notice sorrow is drinking from a mug given to us by someone we've hurt. We ask sorrow about themselves, and we scoot closer to hear. We eventually decide to invite a small group of friends over for a potluck because we want sorrow to meet them. Sorrow says, maybe more than just a few of your closest friends. So we add to the list a couple of acquaintances from work, the supermarket. We add our mechanic to the list, our chiropractor, that neighbor we wave at, but not much more than that. Looking over your shoulder as your growing list of invites grows, sorrow nudges you in the arm and says, maybe just invite anybody with some sorrow to bring along. So we open it up. Bring a dish and bring your sorrow. We prepare a few staples, which sorrow helps with. Sorrow even roots around in the antique cabinet that you never look at anymore for how bad it hurts, and pulls out your mother's handmade, quilted, and embroidered placemats with everybody's initials on them. Let's use these, sorrow says, clapping them together to get the dust out. And then guests start showing up. Just as your sorrow is pulling loaves of bread from the oven and you're dressing the salad. At first, just a few, nodding and smiling shyly as you wave them in. Yup, this is the place. Then a few more ring the doorbell, and they start coming in twos and threes and squads and families. So you just keep the door open, front and back, because they're coming in droves, walking up the hill towards the house at the north and coming through the backwoods from the south. The horse is already too full, way too full, you think. But everyone squishes in, and somehow it never quite fills up. Bringing their food and their sorrows. Some are obviously old pros at the potluck, looking for a place to spot their dish. These are the ones, they even bring their own plate and utensils, with an index card of the ingredients, if it has nuts or gluten or dairy. And some guests bring a box of cookies or a bag of chips or a 2-liter they got at Kroger on the way over. And some, of course, forget the goodies. But at this potluck, no one forgets their sorrow, which they introduce to each other. And you can barely hear over how loud it is. I'd like you to meet my sorrow! We holler to each other, dipping the flatbread into the hummus, or eating the kimchi with our fingers because the forks are long gone. Good to meet you! We shout, smiling and nodding at the sorrow, who smiles and nods and half shrugs and raises their eyebrows. This is mine, we yell, pulling the spoon from the doll we're eating to point at our sorrow, who takes a bite of the lentils and laughs. Well done, sorrow! Everyone jostles that sorrow. And he leans up against who he came with. And around the oatmeal raisin chocolate chip cookies gathers a gaggle of guests, and their sorrows giggling, pretending to fight over the last cookie before one of the sorrows breaks it into 10 pieces, and they all take a bite out of sorrow's hand, moaning like a choir. It goes on like this, growing louder and more raucous and ramshackle, this potluck of sorrows. A lamp gets knocked off the table. A jade plant topples from the mantle, its clay pot shattering into small shards that a few people promptly set about cleaning up and getting the plant repotted. A thud skips the record back to the beginning of Sly Stone's family affair, and the dancing, which had been intermittent, just blasts off. All of us in our sorrows, sweating, stomping, shaking, tearing it up. Pictures falling off the walls, books from the shelves, logs ablaze, even splitting on the stove. Riotous, this care, this caring, this incitement, this joy. My hunch is That joy is an ember for, or a precursor to, wild and unpredictable and transgressive and unboundaried solidarity. And that solidarity might incite further joy, which might incite further solidarity, and on and on. My hunch is that joy emerging from our common sorrow, which does not necessarily mean we have the same sorrows, but that we in common sorrow might draw together, might depolarize us, de-atomize us enough that we can consider what in common we love. And although attending to what we hate in common is too often all the rage, and as it happens, also a very big business, noticing what we love in common and studying that might help us survive. Friends, I invite you to just kind of sit in whatever you're sitting in right now. If you're drawn, keep drawn. If you're pondering, keep pondering. If you're journaling, keep journaling. If you're looking at the text, keep on with that. The next thing we'll do in just a moment, we'll be having our own little potluck of sorrows. You'll bring a plate and bring your sorrow. I don't want to give you too many instructions all at once. So just sit for a second. Find where your mind takes you.
Plate and you want one, I'm coming around. Okay. Need anything else to draw with? Need a plate. You're going to join me and Luke over here in the circle. So we're going to practice this potluck of sorrows here for a minute. And remember, these are all survival practices for us to try our hands at. So, Ray, you bringing a plate? Mm-hmm. You bringing a plate, Luke? Mm-hmm. Anybody want to go first?
I'm finishing up my drawing.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah. I guess what was coming to me was I've noticed the importance of sharing stories of sorrow, and especially in the work we're doing here right now. Hear a lot of stories of people going through some really hard stuff, and I think being able to hear that story and to have other people hold that story as well, it really helps. Holding something alone is really hard.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so, yeah.
Thank you, Ray. So I picked up a highlighter because when I do rent support with somebody, I take their application, I sit and listen to what's going on for them. I take notes, they're different, there's information, but there's also just story, like you said. And then when I'm ready to take that into Brett, I use a highlighter to highlight, here's who you're making the check out to, here's the amount, here's where it goes. So Brett can look at this sheet with all this stuff written on it and know what to do. And I picked up a highlighter to write here, rent support, and I realize it looks like it's faded away, and that makes me really sad. I think I'm bringing, one of my sorrows that I'm bringing today is just, when the hurricane first hit, there was just people sending money from all over the place, and local funders were making it easy to get grants and things were fast, and then it's like things just pop back into their old patterns, and I'm really sad and heartbroken right now of all the people that are going to be lined up this week, and we'll have to tell them no, and that's going to have some of them are people I've already talked to and was really hoping we could do something to help them. And a lot of them are going to get evicted. So it makes me sad. That highlighter has made me feel good these last few weeks, months. But today it made me feel sad. It looks like something's not strong enough. Yeah.
Thanks, Marcia.
Yeah.
I drew a picture of Anna Louise's desk with 3 million folders on it and a bunch of people around the table. I think we gather so many stories from people that are coming looking for help. But there's also been this new crew of people that we've contracted work for that didn't really have a relationship to the church before this, or our church. And sometimes sitting in that office feels like a big, crazy family reunion where there's a million stories being told at the same time.
Yeah.
And can you believe this person said that? Or I can't figure out how this spreadsheet works. Or how is this all going to happen? But a lot of them that's been a place where people have shared their sorrows with people in the midst of that work as we've built trust with each other. And I've been able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
a sorrow that I've brought to this church a lot has been a sorrow of loneliness, moving here, not really knowing anybody, and feeling my cup fill up with all these lovely people here, and then going home and feeling chasmous, and having some of these new contract workers, these new relationships, these new people to hold sorrows with, has really met a huge need for me. I think I'm bringing a sorrow that might have already turned into a potluck a little bit.
Nice. Thank you, Luke.
And
Anybody
now,
else who? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if anyone else
Who wants to
wants
join
to
us?
share a plate,
You don't have to. There's no pressure, but come
Yeah.
on in.
and if your mobility is such that it would be difficult for you to get to the circle, raise a hand and I'll be able to get a mic to you. And I'll also try to keep an eye on the YouTube chat.
Yeah. And you can come and go as you're ready. Susan?
Hi, I'm Susan. My wife is here with me, and I took a plate and I cut a heart out of the middle of it. My heart is kind of wandering around aimlessly sometimes. Sometimes I feel joy, sometimes I feel frustration, sometimes I feel anger. My feelings are kind of all over the place, and so I drew the directions, north, south, east, and west, because sometimes I don't know which direction to go. I feel helpful sometimes, I feel useless sometimes. I've had people calling me, I'm a lawyer, recently, the last few days, because they work for the federal government, and they've been told they have to stay home, they don't get to work, and they have families and children, and they want to know what their rights are. And I'm trying to share immigrant rights posters and cards and things with people too. I gave some to Marcia today to help distribute to people who they can carry a card in their back pocket that actually they can take out and hand to ICE if they show up, that says what my rights are, because they don't know how to say them. And what you can do when somebody comes to your door. Do you have to open the door? Do you not have to open the door? When do you have to open the door? When do you have to let somebody in? You know. And we're moving out of our house Wednesday because our house got damaged by Helene. So I just feel like directionless. You just can't do enough.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Taking a deep breath with that.
Oh, by the way, I wanted markers. I got colored pencils, and I wanted to do the gay pride colors in my heart. and colored pencils won't color on this.
Well, you can finish it at home.
As a side note, sometimes you just don't have the right tools in hand, right? You got to find them. You got to find them. So I go back to the basket and get the tools.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan.
Dan, what are you bringing?
Well, I wound up doing a drawing with the saying. This one?
Let me double check.
Making sure it's on. Yeah, it's on.
Thank you.
I wound up doing a drawing, which drew itself. It's an awkward drawing of a heart. And as I started to write in it and decided I was making a poster, like the kind that people used to post on their wall a lot back in the 60s and 70s, little sayings of wisdom. And I also realized, as I started to write in the heart, that I believe this is the 4-month anniversary of my heart attack back in late September.
Yeah.
And so I wrote about the heart. Sorrow is the golden glue of the heart.
Wow.
Spread it on gently and with care. Stick together with those who you love and those who love you. That's all.
Thank Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes. We're so glad you're here
Yeah.
with us. Yes. Yes.
I drew a map, a poor map of the United States with a big old question mark in the middle. I've always believed that this is the greatest country in the world. But I've come to realize that this is the hardest country in the world. America isn't easy. It's hard. And the problem with America is that the powers that be keep stepping on their own toes. They continue to make decisions based on elitist attitudes. This creates a lot of sorrow in me because I still believe in this country, but I worry about this country. But what changes my sorrow is when I'm here, knowing that everybody else that's here, we're doing everything we can to change that. And that's important. We have to pay it forward every day because we're not getting any help. We're not getting the help. The things that gave you sorrow give me sorrow.
Thank you, Bill.
Mia, what are you sharing?
So I'm not going to share my plate because it's very personal, but I'm going to share a memory of a friend I had who passed. This is their anniversary of passing away to suicide. So I had an online friend named Cyber, or Amy, and a year ago, she took her mom's pills from the cabinet and decided to overdose. She did not get the support she needed from her school. She suffered from bullying. I'd known her for about 2 years before she passed away. She was one of my best friends. She had an amazing girlfriend who was going through a tough time, but thankfully I helped her make it out alive because she was also very depressed. She was a great person. She stood up for what she believed in. She stood up for women's rights, even though she was only like 15 when she died. And yeah.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you. We're right here with you. We're holding that with you. Yes. Thank you, Mia. We love you.
Yeah. I also want to say if there's anyone else in the... Yeah. What's up?
But I also want to acknowledge that as hard as it is to see your friend not feel supported enough to live anymore, you have to acknowledge all the great memories you had with them. It's not just sadness, because you can live with joy and you can live with heartbreak at the same time.
Thank you, Mia.
I remember the times where we were playing video games together, or we were just talking about how hard school was, or the times where she was crying and I was supporting her, or I was crying and I was supporting her. I was crying and she was supporting me. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but she was in the hospital and she passed today at 10 p.m. So, a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago. Can we pause
Thank you, Mia.
for a second with that?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Yeah. So, Mia, one of the things I did the last few days was look through the Psalms. So our ancestors are our teachers. And just listening to you makes me come to Psalm 30, part of Psalm 30. To you, O Lord, I cry, and to the Lord I make supplication. Hear, O Lord, my cry, and be gracious to me. O Lord, be my helper. And then you have turned my mourning into dancing. You have taken off my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. O God, my soul may praise you and not be silent. O Lord, I will give you thanks. And I think about how our ancestors have done exactly what you're doing, Mia.
Mm-hmm.
Wept as they remembered. And found the ways that God sustains us in the sorrow and brings us joy in the remembering. So thank you. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you. I also just want to say, if there's anyone else in this room or in Zoom land that lives with intrusive thoughts about death, we're here for you.
Yeah,
you're not alone.
Yeah.
I've been living with that kind of thing for a couple of years now. And everyone's experience is different. But I know a little bit about that. So if you need to talk to me or Marcia or anyone on our staff, we're here to support.
Yes.
Just a second. Yeah. Oh, did that not? Is this a little more? There we go. Thank you, MC. What I said was, if there's anyone else in this room, or if there's anyone watching online that is living with some intrusive thoughts about death, we're here for you. You're not alone. That's something that I've been through in some ways, and everyone's life's a little different, but I know a little bit about that, and if you need a friend to listen to and support you, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
My email is luke@gcpcusa.org. We can set something up.
And mine's Marcia@gcpcusa.org, and it's spelled the way Marcia Brady spelled it, M-A-R-C-I-A. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia.
Marcia, Marcia, Marcia.
Anybody else want to share what they're bringing to the potluck?
I started with the phrase happy, joyous, and free, and wrapped it in a rainbow. It's very, very subtle, very subtle. But you also have this black, looming darkness that is encompassing around it. And we're definitely seeing that right now in the climate of America, in our communities. One particular one that I would like to just real quick talk about is this rhetoric against trans people. One of the things that has been brought up as a key talking point is that there are trans people that are getting gender reassignment surgeries in federal prisons. In our federal prisons, there's about 15,000 people who identify as trans, and of those people, two people. Keep in mind that these people also still pay taxes. The other one is trans kids in sports. Overwhelming issue that has been brought to the table. The majority of states cannot even cite an instance of a trans woman participating in sports. The trans people are about 1% of the population. You bring that down to adolescents who are already dealing with one of the most tumultuous times in their life while they're trying to figure out their identity and how they need to show up in the community with their friends and be their authentic selves. In, I believe it was South Dakota, one instance out of all the high school students, one instance of a trans girl playing on male sports. Wyoming, exactly the same thing. But remember, the majority of these states cannot even cite that this is even an issue, that it's happening. To quote the language that and rhetoric that is sometimes used against us, it's a nothing burger. It's not even an issue. It really isn't. The whole point of all of this is to make us feel othered. Yes. It's to make us forget that at the end of the day, it's always the haves versus the have-nots. And we, as humans, as people, as community, need to remember that all of us are cut from the same cloth. All of us are Americans, and that's what matters most in these next 4 years.
Thank you. Would you mind sharing your name with the community? Some people might not know just your first name.
Zelda Shithe.
Zelda, yeah. Thank you, Zelda. Glad you're here. We hear you and we see you. Thank you. Anyone else? Do you want to come in the circle, Patty, or do you want to?
Well, mine kind of goes along with what you shared a little bit, Zelda, because I just think we make way too many blanket statements about this group or that group, and we don't individualize. And I just made a picture tried to make no two people alike, and just said, listen to their stories, each are different. Because I think if we will listen to people, if we would hear their stories, and if everyone would hear their stories, if our government would listen to some stories, we would find that each person is different, and there would be a whole lot more empathy instead of making these mass statements about groups of people, because you just feel for people when you hear their stories. You can look, and it's so easy to pass judgment about somebody until you sit down with them and you hear their story. And you feel for them, and you come to love them, and you understand them in such a different way. And so that's my real sorrow, is that there is just not enough listening, and there's way too much judgment.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
Malachi? Yellow on.
Cool, thanks. So I guess on my play, it's mostly kind of scribbles. It's like rainbow scribbles. But I did write on it as like, I wish I didn't have to fight through anxiety and a fear in a world designed to make us afraid. Because I feel like as a trans person, it's been a really hard week for me. Even though I'm probably in like the best position possible as like as a white trans man with all my documents changed, it's very painful to just see like things moving backwards, and to see my friends and my community like encountering issues and having to wonder like what's gonna happen. And as you were beginning the story, the essay, I the date came up of like April 2016, and I remember that because I was right around then, I was about a month from beginning my medical transition, and it was also when North Carolina passed the bathroom bills to, like, and I remember it was like I made the decision, I made the call to Planned Parenthood right as that bill was passing, as Trump was gaining more popularity. And I remember this fear of like, there's a certain point in which I can't sort of like backtrack on this, and it's gonna make like sort of, it's gonna be hard to hide this. You know, we can't like go back, but I did it anyway. And it's a scary choice, and it's a hard choice, and it's a choice I'm glad I've made. And I think there's so, you know, and I know so many of us have so many choices, even my choices, even like come here and like step out in community, and it's extremely rewarding, but boy, it's hard.
Yes.
And I think it's, you know, I think even when, and you know, I'm somebody that's fairly prone to anxiety, but I think in a, you know, in a world where we could be supportive, it'd be a lot easier than having to fight through it in a place where it's like all kinds of rhetoric and all sorts of systems meant to hold us in.
Yes.
Thank you, Malachi.
Thank you, Malachi. We see you, we hear you, we love you. Yeah, we're grateful for you, Malachi, and your leadership. Yes, we see you. I'm going to read another psalm. This is Psalm 13. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, because God has dealt bountifully with me. Is there anyone else who wants to share before we move on?
The sorrow that popped for me today is I got triggered earlier in the service by my past of the church harming me. And so I have on my plate triggered sorrow and survival, but I have love, because love. I was able to go to Marcia and whisper something to her. I have community to heal. And I was sitting by Hans, who I could whisper to, and know I have community, know I have love. And hearing these stories this morning, Malachi, I love you. We have community, we have each other, and we have love.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
We do love you.
Love you.
And we see you. Yes.
This is my point.
so I'm going to try. All week, I've received phone calls about, should we come to school? I'm so scared. What if I get home and my parents aren't there? Or parents saying, should I send my kids to school? What's going to happen? And the LGBTQIA students as well, right? Like, what's going to happen to us? And the reason why it took me a minute to decide if I was going to speak or not is because we don't have an oppression Olympics, but I got a lot of calls also saying, Miss Marta, our black kids are dying in our backyard every other week. And where's the Know Your Rights cards? And where's all the emergency 1, 2, 3 right now? And so as I went to schools, I was saying that. And it was hard because I am Latina, right? And I do want the protection. And I benefit from both. I mean, I am a Latina and LGBTQ, right? Like, but to know that we can fly into emergency when something is pressing and kind of forget a little bit about what's here every single day that doesn't go away. I just wanted us to remember, and it's not Oppression Olympics because there's enough love for all of us, but just to keep that centered in front, because it's every other week about just right now. And we just lost a black woman last week, right? Tired of racism, tired of suffering every day, not just in an emergency.
Thank you, Marta. Yes. Breathing. We hold this together because of what Marta's saying. Because it isn't, as beautiful as it is to hear each other's stories, it's not just about personal empathy. It's about solidarity. That all these kinds of oppression are linked. And Zelda said it best. It all gets distracted from what it's really about, which is the money, the resources, the hoarding of resources. And so it's so important for us to be able to sit in all that comes up for us when we hear these different stories. And it makes sense when we go to, but what about this? But what about that? The Oppression Olympics, like Marta said. And we're playing right into their hands if we do that. Every kind of oppression comes from the same source: greed. And how are we going to disrupt that way of doing things when it gets power on a systemic level? It's got to be more than just personal empathy. Yeah. That's what solidarity is. So thank you, Marta. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, everyone who's bringing. You see how this potluck's working? It's bringing us what we need today. And then Rachel, you had something too.
Now I got distracted.
You go, MC, and then Rachel will go.
I just wanted to piggyback off of that. Like, I had joy in the middle, and then I wrote the word sorrow around that, and then a bunch of stuff that I'm sorrowful about. But you said what's going on is the spirit of greed. That makes sense. And I had wrote, it's the spirit of hate, right? Which I believe is an antichrist spirit that occupies the highest governmental seat in our country, which is revealed to us in the biblical text, knowing it's going to happen, right? But what brings me joy is to think about, hold on, before I say that, like, because of that spirit of greed and hate, perpetual hate, right?
Hate is an instrument of greed.
Yes.
Hate is created.
Yes.
So that greed can flourish.
So that greed can flourish, right. So I always learn something every Sunday,
yes.
right?
Yes.
So then I got to go back and write greed because I know that there are different tentacles that greed has, right? That's trying to take us back with at least 60 years of progress in this country. And that's not okay. It's not okay. And I continue to look for true information. Like a lot of the rhetoric that the greed, right, is speaking about right now can't be done without an act of Congress. Can't do those things by itself, right? Or by himself. So I said all that to say is that what brings me joy, though, out of knowing all of that and experiencing all of that, because I fall into a lot of those buckets from the tentacles of greed, is that I do have community, right? And I do have people that I know that love me, right? That love us. And just to know that there are true co-conspirators in our country, folks that are willing to lay down their privilege for those that are marginalized and stand in solidarity with us, whatever that means at the time, right, in context. So thank you for allowing us to do this because it gives us that two-sided resource, Steffi, right? That though something can bring us sorrow, right? If we lean into, like the young lady sitting here was saying, if we lean into those positive things or positive memories out of that, it could be a two-sided resource. Though the greed is happening, there is joy in our mourning. Yeah.
Thank you, MC. We're so grateful for you.
Love you, MC.
Yes, love you, MC. Rachel?
I really struggled with the Blue Day book. It used the phrase, it's easy, to like snap out of it. And I know that that's a book for specific situations, and he has the right to say that if he wants to, but it's not true for everybody in every situation. And then I was listening to Ross Gay and struggling with this image of a party where everyone gets to bring their sorrow, because it feels pretty fictitious to me, because I've had so many experiences where that just wasn't part of what belonging and welcome mean. You didn't get to bring those sorrows. You only get joy if you're already experiencing joy.
Yeah.
You only get to be part of that dancing and feasting if you're already in a good place. And I think that, this, for me, this is the space where it happens. And I'm really grateful. But just thinking of all the times outside of here, and the times here, I'm sure, for various of us, when not all bodies get to express sorrow the same way and to be accepted in communities. So thinking of all the people who just don't get to.
Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Yes. Yeah. I think it's really important to raise up the aspirational quality of this work, of this community, of even the life of faith. It is aspirational. And that's why we use the P word a lot, practice. We are practicing something right now, and our bodies need to feel it. Our bodies need to feel what it feels like to be in an empathic space. Our bodies need to know what it feels like to be safe to bring your sorrow. Our bodies need to know what it feels like to, in that sorrow, find the drumbeat of community and let that mourning turn to joy. Joy in just being seen and heard and accompanied. And it is very hard work. And there are ways that it can be, it can hurt at the same time that there's like a healing opportunity. And I hear what you're saying in terms of this kind of like deep, visceral memory of like, this doesn't always happen. And that's real. Mm-hmm. And I heard that in a lot of what people shared today. That maybe we're trying it right now, but I sure have a whole lot more bundles of stuff where it didn't work that way. Yeah. And how can we like really bank this moment, these moments? How can we practice it enough that our body actually starts to be like, oh, that is real. That wasn't just a one-off thing. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm feeling drawn toward this time of assurance. We weren't sure how this would go. we weren't sure what would happen.
You don't have to give that away.
But
it was going so well.
I wasn't sure how this would go, and I wonder if we could get some drummers back in for the assurance as we finish up our time to remember that, there's lots of wisdom and words out there about joy and solidarity and justice. Lots of words out there about practices of survival. But the gospel isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving. It's about life abundant. It's about enough for all. It's about healing that goes all the way down to the core of our very personhood. It's about true safety. It's about real trust. And we are people of that promise. And I pray that collectively we can continue to tune our appetite for a better world. Hallelujah and amen. Others can come as we sing, finish up, have our drum beat. Yeah, right there.
Joy, come back. 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 Joy, 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 come back. Joy, 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 come back. Get it in the simple, breeze in the basic. In the simple, breeze in the basic. Dances, dances, dances to and fro. Dances, dances, dances to and fro. Come be wrapped in her quiet warmth. Come be wrapped in her quiet. All together now. Yeah. Joy, 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 come back. Simmers in the simple, breeze in the basic. Dances, dances, dances to and fro. Come be wrapped in her quiet warmth. Joy, 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 come back. Simmers in the simple, breeze in the basic. Dances, dances, dances to and fro. Come be wrapped in her quiet warmth. One more time. Joy, joy, joy comes back. Simmers in the simple, breeze in the basic. Dances to and fro. Come be wrapped in her quiet warmth. Come be wrapped in her quiet warmth. Come be wrapped in her quiet warmth. Come be wrapped in her quiet warmth.
Amen. Okay. All right. Kyle's going to play a little, just a 1-minute video of an introduction to the choir anthem by Melanie DeMore, the composer.
Hello, my fellow singing family. This is Melanie DeMore, the composer of Blessed Be. I'm so glad that you're going to jump into this, and you'll see in the piece that there's like some little rhythm that's going on, but the real rhythm that goes in there, in case you're feeling brave, is this. It's a gullah stick pounding rhythm. So you might go, blessed be the tree of life that grows within you and me. Blessed be the tree of life. So that is really that's one of the rhythms, and you might people doing the stomp. Blessed be all of that. And when you're singing this piece, for me, it's a whole thing of rhythmic joy. And one, of course, the song was written for Carolyn Brunel, who is the wife of Philip Brunel of Vocal Essence. Sing, pound, and be lifted.
Drum, if you want to come in the circle and move, but I invite you to do a little stomping and clapping with this. Go a little faster with it. Blessed be the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be, blessed be.
a deep breath, everybody. Let it sink into your body. Give it a chance to really feel that beat, that heartbeat, that pulse of community. So my charge to you is this, Grace Covenant. Come back to this circle again and again. So that we can collectively bank these experiences, because all week long we're going to get, and we got to take care of each other, not just take care of ourselves, but take care of each other. And we got to figure out how to do that in new and radical ways. So just remember, you're not alone. We're in this together. And the one that leads us on that road is Jesus. He's the model for this kind of solidarity that we're trying to sense into today. So go with that love, that grace, that modeling, that mercy, the unique love of our uniquely powerful God, the radical and prophetic love of Jesus the Christ, and the unending, unbending, embracing warmth and friendship of the Holy Spirit. Hallelujah. And amen. Sing on your way out.